Hello and welcome to ELT Under the Covers ELT React, where we education professionals look at the good and the bad and the ugly of teaching clips on the internet. Today we are going to be looking at a lecture from a famous, some say infamous, lecturer that's currently taking the internet and YouTube by storm, Jordan Peterson. But first, introductions. I'm Neil of Team Teacher.
Hello everybody, it's Professor Reach.
We're going to leap out of the psychoanalytic domain now and start talking about a form of approach to personality and its transformations that's predicated on a set of different philosophical assumptions. And it's a bit tricky to navigate this because it requires the adoption of a different frame of mind, and of course that's the case with all the theorists that we're going to be discussing. Phenomenology probably had its most thorough explication in the philosophy of Martin Heidegger. And Heidegger was actually trying to reconstruct Western philosophy from the bottom up. He thought that we had been pursuing an improper pathway conceptually really ever since the time of the ancient Greeks. Back around the turn of the century, the previous century, from the 19th to the 20th century, a new form of geometry was invented, and that geometry was predicated on different axioms than Euclidean geometry. Now, people had thought for thousands of years that the world was properly described by Euclidean geometry, and you know, when you employ a system like Euclidean geometry, there's axioms that you have to accept, and they're like the rules of the game, and once you accept the axioms, then you can go ahead and play the game. But there were other forms of geometry invented, and in the later part of the 19th century, and it turned out that those forms with different axioms actually described the world better than the Euclidean forms, sort of like the transformation from Newton to Einstein. This was the transformation from Euclid to, say, I think I've got his name right, Riemann, R-I-E-M-A-N-N, who developed a new form of geometry, and it turned out to be just the geometry that Einstein needed when he was putting his theories forward. And the reason I'm telling you that is because you can think of systems that have different axioms as different tools. Same idea that Piaget was trying to express when he talked about how children's cognitive representations underwent stage transformations so that they were starting to apply new principles, not only a new way of looking at the world, but they were fundamentally retooling their presumptions about how the world operated. And Heidegger tried to do the same thing with philosophy. And it's tricky to figure out exactly what he was talking about, but I'll give it a shot, and then we can move forward with Rogers. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But if you'll try it, you'll find that it's the most difficult thing that you've ever done. Okay, good. We'll leave it at that, and then we'll see you on Tuesday.
So that was just kind of like the start of that lecture on phenomenology, but bit of a difference. What do you think?
Well, where did you find that? Did you just go on YouTube and type Jordan Peterson lecture?
Yeah.
Basically. That was a popular hit.
That was a popular hit. Yeah, I think
that's
so.
Interesting. I definitely don't think that's the most charitable example of Jordan Peterson's lectures that I would show.
Yeah.
For one, that is a tricky thing that he's getting into. He's going to talk about Heidegger, who's one of the less accessible philosophers, to a psychology class, and he's going to use that to then get into Carl Rogers, who's a very interesting psychologist who, if anyone has an interest in psychology, you're going to know a little bit about that. And he was making analogies between the sort of the what do they call it? Like ground, when there's like a big shift, ground something shift.
Ground, no, reality shifting, groundbreaking.
Well, whatever. Yeah,
I know what you mean.
there's an expression. So he's talking about the big shift that took place in geometry, and then making a parallel to talk about that's what Heidegger was trying to do in philosophy. He failed. But anyway, he was trying to do that in philosophy, because how the hell do you flip philosophy on its head? It's so in depth. Now, what would I say about that compared to the last clip? Well, first of all, heavily content based. Heavily content based. I mean, if you don't pay attention to what he's saying, you'll get lost quick. And that's one good reason to pay attention. So that's going to bring you in. What we didn't have there is we didn't have the sort of little anecdotal nuggets that he throws in a lot of his lectures, which are very, very, very interesting and engaging to listen to. So we didn't get to see that, unfortunately, which I think is one of his strengths. It's one of the techniques that he employs in order to increase engagement and to get people kind of hooked in.
Well, I'm not sure if it's a conscious thing, but I'm going to just briefly jump in and interject, because if you're watching this and you kind of want us to go into a little more about Jordan Peterson, let us know in the comments below, and we'll watch one of his lectures. In fact, give us some suggestions for lectures that you think were really good. We want to see them in the classroom, though, and we'll kind of go into more detail, and Rich can maybe find an example of one of these nugget things. But yeah, Rich, sorry, carry on.
Oh yeah. I can definitely provide examples of top JP moments. I've made a number of classes. I've made a number of classes based on some of his lectures, so I know where the spicy, where the tasty bits are. Yeah, I think you're right. It probably isn't conscious. But he can be very good at making things relatable to someone on a day-to-day level, kind of bringing up something like when you're doing this and you think this is what's happening in a kind of a psychological kind of model way. And it's very convincing the way he does it. So there's a few other things that I would say positively about this particular performance. As I say, heavily content-based. I think the delivery was a little bit slow, but I think that's because he was kind of thinking through his words and choosing them very carefully. The stereotypical Jordan Peterson delivery is actually very fast. He speaks fast normally, really fast actually. So this was actually a lot slower than he would normally present things. And the other thing is the kind of dynamism. He sort of walks around, Yeah,
I was hoping you'd touch on that.
Okay.
Because I feel like I can wade in a little bit more on this. I've done I got a bit of a background with comedy and performing on stage. One of the tenets of that is to walk the stage, to make sure that you're going from one side to the other, and as you are doing that, engaging. And you can actually see he gestures as he's going through. And when you watch really good comedians or performers, singers even, they won't be generally stationary in the middle of the stage. They will walk and try, and they won't just walk back and forth like some sort of fish swimming in a bowl, but they will gesture. They will try and get eye contact with the audience to keep drawing them in, because and I think I remember something about CELTA, in the CELTA, where they talked about this, where if a student's getting, you see a student's distracted, you look at that student and it brings them back in. I don't know if that was in the CELTA or if I read that somewhere, but he has a stage presence.
I've heard about that. Yeah, the idea of I think someone called it spinning plates, and it's like you keep this plate spinning by like looking at the students who might be kind of getting slightly distracted. I don't know if it's part of the CELTA syllabus, but it's something I've heard English teachers talk about. So yeah, there's that element, the dynamic kind of moving around. I like it. I think some people actually dislike it though. They kind of find it, they kind of like want it to be lower energy. But I personally, I like it. I like it. It's good to see someone moving around. It's much more interesting than having someone just stand there, or even worse, like sit behind the desk. You know, I don't know if you had any like lecturers who did that, sit behind the desk and just kind of talk, like
Really?
that. Yeah. I've had that. Yeah. Sit behind the desk, talking away, click, click, click with the slides. But that goes on to what I was saying about how you get some people, I think, they just know I'm the expert, I'm the one who knows everything, and you guys have to work your ass off if you want to do well in this institution. It's not my job to teach you; it's your job to teach yourself and listen to me. And I think even Jordan Peterson has that philosophy actually, but he maximizes, to some extent, he maximizes engagement by really focusing heavily on content and also trying to link things and make it relevant. Like that whole parable between the big change in geometry, which allowed Einstein to come up with his physics, and Heidegger with philosophy, that's almost certainly not necessarily part of the syllabus. That's him teaching it like that.
And I think it's, to equate this to English language teaching, it would be setting context. It's providing the a depth of meaning as to what he's kind of trying to get across with this idea of phenomenology. That it is a big change. It's huge. This new thing, this new philosophy, whatever you want to call it, juggernaut coming into the zeitgeist, and I think he's trying to emphasize that, because otherwise it's just like, oh yes, and now we go from this idea to this idea, but you don't feel the weight. You don't feel the weight of it. And I think what he does, quite rightly, by giving that kind of parable, is it adds a weight to it, and that change.
Yep, that sounds about right.
So I purposely chose that lecture from Jordan Peterson because I thought it would be. Some of his lectures are really, really engaging, and we can find examples of that. But I think the majority would probably be somewhere around that particular lecture. So I feel it's more of a standard, and I feel a representative of what you would get generally on the higher end, just day to day at a university. So. Yeah. It was interesting. I would get a lot out of those lectures, but is it really effective, Rich? I mean, you mentioned it at the very beginning of the episode. There's no pedagogy.
There's a lot that we could add, isn't there? I mean, there really is a lot that we could add. The interest is kind of dangling there, but interaction is minimal. Interaction, that's the big one, isn't it?
Yeah,
there's no interaction. There's no stopping, no question asking, no CCQs, no pair-based interaction, no activities. It's just listen to me, and there's only so much you can do with that. Yeah, we've got Jamie Keddy storytelling, it can be done, but he does dialogic storytelling, so he adds that element of interaction into it. Now we can go back to traditional storytelling, tribal societies, the Saxons around the campfire telling the stories of Beowulf, and that's how people learn and stuff. And maybe those situations didn't have a great deal of interaction, but people still learnt it well. Fair enough, it does work, but that's making the best of a bad situation. You're not using those pedagogical tools that we know are incredibly effective.
Yeah, definitely.
The whole CLT thing is based on, really.
Yeah, it's I mean, that's what research shows is the more pedagogy, the more that you're able to actively engage students, the more you learn. And you know, there are good points to the lectures. That they're efficient for the teacher. The teacher can, you know, like practice and refine. And someone like Jordan Peterson has so much that everything there. That was. That he wasn't reading a script. He wasn't up on the screen. That was all coming from his amazing mind to retain that and put it all together and then put it in this narrative form that helps other people easily understand is absolutely astonishing. But it favors him. It favors him, and you know, it's up to the students to try and learn and understand that. But you know, it kind of almost feels like it's weird because he's recorded these lectures, he's put them on YouTube, so it's almost like he doesn't need to teach these lectures anymore because the people could just watch these videos.
Right, because the experience is near enough exactly the same whether you're sat there in the lecture theatre or
exactly
video.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, and I think
so why do you have to pay $10,000 a year to go to a university, or probably more?
Well, hold on, Rich. You're going down a very dangerous road. What is this? You say we don't need to go to university. We can just read books and watch videos online and require the same level of knowledge.
Yeah.
But you know, we've talked about the kind of the good points and the bad points a little bit, but also we're missing a lot of other nuances as well as why it's detrimental. Because you know, sure that we have the stuff like students are not engaged, they're not actively participating in that, but you know, it doesn't accommodate individual students' needs. It's very broad, not individual. You know, if they have disabilities or other sort of things, you know, like it's very auditory. So where's the images? Where's the movement? We know stuff like TPR really helps. It's a comprehensive approach. That's something that we talk about a lot in English language teaching, making it comprehensive, hitting all the means of input. It favors institutionalization, where students become too reliant on the teachers. They're not self-directed. They don't feel maybe an ownership of the knowledge that they've learned. They have to learn to learn. They have to learn to take detailed notes. Everyone had their laptops and notebooks and stuff out, and you know. You have to learn to do that when you're doing lectures, and especially with someone like Jordan Peterson who's talking fast, you've got to learn different ways to make notes. So it's adding it's more and more stuff put onto the student in a bad way, and it just totally teacher centered. It's when I feel if it's the learner should be the focus.
That clip was actually taken from a longer video about lecturing as a teaching methodology, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you want to watch that full video, then check out the link below. If you want to see us react to Jordan Peterson's longer lectures, then leave a comment. Otherwise, thank you for watching.
If you're looking for more information from myself, you can go to teamteacherchina.com. We've got a whole bunch of materials, PowerPoints that you can use instantly in the classroom. We've got a Team Teacher China YouTube channel where we have videos teaching you how to use those materials. Team Teacher English, where we put those materials into a video form for self-study. And Team Teacher Baby, where I take my experience as a teacher and put that into parenting.
And go to youtube.com/Professor Rich to see some English teaching. You can catch me weekly live streams on Oxford Online English YouTube channel. Oh, and also you can do a YouTube search for POG space UK, and you would get my alpha version of my new gaming channel, which actually just have some trial content on there at the moment. You can email us here at eltunderthecovers@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to contribute to the show.
Smash that like button, share and subscribe.
And watch 100% of the video and don't click
Exactly.
off. Thank you.
Bye.